Welcome to cold Michigan. It's like 20 something degrees out. It's pretty cold. I don't want to work, but I kind of want to work. It's been a long time since I've uploaded a video, so kind of want to do something that I've been kind of like pondering for the last couple of weeks. Now, I'm always inspired by rally cars, and Celica has a huge rally heritage, but they pretty much stopped at the 7th gen at the new Celica just because it was nose heavy, didn't have an option for an all-wheel drive, and well, from the old Celicas to the new Celicas, kind of ugly. But I kind of want to do a front wheel drive rally setup, and I've just been pondering it in my head, and I think I'm just gonna do something along those lines. Now, obviously in my last couple of videos I fixed it up, I cleaned a lot of things on it, I replaced a lot of things, including the hatch, the interior pieces. A lot of the front pieces were gone out of the grills and whatnot, so it's definitely came a full circle in its life, and it's still got a lot of life in it. It's got the 1ZZ, so it's the GT, so it's got the 1ZZ 5-speed in it, which granted not great on the horsepower, but these engines literally last forever. Like, this one has 200,000 miles. I know of a personal 1ZZ manual out of a black GT and out of a Pontiac Vibe that both of them have more than 300,000 miles. So this one's just gonna, hopefully it's just gonna last that long too. I probably will never do a 2ZZ swap because it's just not worth it in my eyes. If anything, if this engine ever goes, I'll still put a 1ZZ in it and maybe do a mild build. They have turbo kits for them. You can make pretty okay power, but it's front wheel drive. Definitely a differential. The front differential would need to be changed because it's more of like a one wheel peel kind of thing. But that's besides the point. I want to do a tribute car, and the first thing I could picture was some rally flaps, beef up the suspension so it can actually handle some, suspension travel, and along those lines. So when I got the car, it had 17-inch Enkis on it, with a 40 offset. They're not terrible wheels. I mean, honestly, they're pretty nice. 17x7 with a 40 offset, and they're nice. And they got some nice tires on them, but they're summer tires. So I went ahead and I got some snow tires put on the wheels. That way I can at least survive in this winter. I got a pretty good deal on some used snow tires, so we're gonna rock them. And then I also ordered some universal mud flaps. Now these are your very cheap generic cutting board material ones, so they're not the high density rubber ones like you would really want, that gives it durability and flexibility. Now these have a lot of flex to them, but the problem with these is they're still a very plastic base, and so that means in cold weather like now, they tend to get hard, they tend to get brittle, they still flex, but one good whack by something they could possibly crack. But at like $20 to $30 for a set of them on eBay or Amazon, you can't complain. You could technically buy a sheet of that same plastic, that same thickness, and just cut them out and just keep cutting them out every time you break them. A lot of people do that, and it's so much cheaper than spending like $100 or more on some good like rally flaps that you're probably going to tear up anyway and you don't really care about. Biggest thing with these ones is a lot of people will bolt them on and they'll use like a small washer, which it'll help like hold it in there, it'll help it hold it in the fender well. But the problem is like the more flex it has, the more cracking is going to happen where your mounting surface is. So what I went ahead and did is I got a thin piece of aluminum, and that's just going to help give it a little bit of rigid structure. I'm going to actually cut out a frame that's going to be the exact shape of the wheel well here, this exact type of L shape, so that way I can bolt it to that and it has a little bit of a firmer grasp instead of washers. If you had washers, you could just use washers, but you'd have to get them pretty big so that way they at least have a lot of surface area. But I figure an L shape piece of aluminum will do plenty good. Another thing with suspension, so rally cars, especially a grassroots style. You can get gravel suspension. They have inverted struts and they're a lot beefier to take the abuse. They don't have them for this car. You can have them custom made, but that's like 2, 3, 4 grand, and I'm not doing that. The biggest thing is a lot of people will take these struts, they'll put some like aftermarket strut that has a little bit better travel and valving with an adjustment, and then they'll put some beefier springs on there, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do it anytime soon, but we are going to look to that in the future. For now, it's just going to stay stock until I get some better suspension. I am looking at Motegi wheels, 7 by 7.5 with a 40 offset, 17 by 7.5 with a 40 offset. So it'll be pretty much the same, just a little bit wider of a wheel, but they're a rally style, gravel style wheel to keep a lot of the material out of the actual wheel path. The problem with these wheels is with how much gap there is in the spokes, you tend to get a lot of rocks, you tend to get a lot of buildup in there, and the more rocks and more buildup, the wheel starts shaking, starts grinding on the brakes, and it's just not good. But they'll do for now. It'll definitely do. I actually went out and got myself some shears, some new drill bits, because my drill bits are taking a crap, and then some sheet metal screws. Now, a lot of people won't use sheet metal screws because, I mean, it's basically, you know, putting a hole in the fender. You're going to have to put a hole in there anyway. A lot of people will do plastic fasteners, some quick fasteners, actual clamp-in nuts, but I don't care about it. I'm just going to sheet metal it. They're stainless, and obviously I went with aluminum instead of actual steel, so that way it doesn't rust. And yeah, I think it'll work fine. I think it'll work for what we're going to be doing. And honestly, I think this will look pretty dang cool, about like that, in fact. So I'm going to do some kind of measurements and make sure that it's actually going to work with the placement. Yeah, and then we'll go from there. All right, just want to give you a little bit of a progress. So it's hard to see, but I made a Sharpie red line and a red Sharpie. That way it's not so apparent. But I made a line all the way across this, of which I wanted to stick underneath the car. I think that's going to give me the appropriate amount of clearance, so it's not completely rubbing on the ground, and still be able to be you know, useful, instead of, you know, all the way up here. I think that should be good. A lot of people have them even farther down, but I think 4 inches of under gap there will be pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually mark out with that piece of aluminum how I want the bracket to go, and then that will depend on where these sit with the fender well and how that bracket's gonna go. So gonna crunch some numbers. All right, so I mocked it up on the car. Really hard to see the lines, but I mocked up where the actual fender is, where the actual plastic fasteners are, and where that bottom plastic trim is going to be. Now I went ahead and just transferred it over to the aluminum piece. It's going to be basically just like that. Now obviously this is not going to be a huge piece of metal, you know, anything extravagant. I'm just using this as a washer and as a permanent piece that'll help with the durability along the fastener lines. And then of course we're just gonna right into that, see how it goes. All right, got the first one on. Kind of did a quick mock-up and then moved it a little bit, but you can see I got the bracket in there, and that's basically gonna give it a little bit more of a structure, kind of like just having individual washers, but instead of washers we're gonna have a full plate just to give it some more rigidity. This I might connect these two pieces of plastic so that way it doesn't flap, which will be easy. I'll just drill a hole through here and a hole through there and zip tie it, something that could hold it there and quick easily replace and whatnot. So all right, got the wheel on and I think it'll be perfect. It is kind of sticking out a little far, but I think that's pretty much standard. So got this side done. I'm gonna go do the other side in the front, and then I'll have to back it up and do the backs. As you can see, I got the celica turned around because I want to do the rear now. Don't want to do it in the snow, but did the exact same thing to the other side in the exact same way, and honestly I think that'll be perfect. They're not too outrageously low, not too high to where they're kind of useless. Something I did find out with full lock is that inner edge here on the top right there, that hits. So either I am going to fasten that to the plastic, or I'm actually going to just trim a diagonal angle down there to keep that from rubbing, which either way will work fine. It's not like I'm actually going to truly go rally this thing or something, but I think this is going to be pretty cool, especially after the rear goes on. Heck yeah. The rear is going to be fun. Not only do I have to lift it and get the wheel off, but the back of the bumper is a very weird curve the way it's going to be held on there, and definitely going to have to make a piece of metal that's that curvature right there. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to have the rears probably hanging down about the same amount. This bottom line there is going to go to the bottom of the bumper, so about like that. Front, back. It's going to look pretty sweet. I can't wait. All right, give me a little bit to lift it up, take the wheels off, then back to it. All right. Got the rear on. I think it's pretty straight. I'm gonna have to put it on the ground to make sure, but same thing. Got a metal bracket in there just to keep some rigidity to it. I know it kind of looks tacky, but honestly, it doesn't affect me anything. This is just going to be purely just to use as mud flaps. I mean, honestly, they're going to do their job, and with the winter, it's going to fling the snow right into it and not get caught up in the bumper. And not going to lie, with the white, it's going to look pretty sweet. So, kind of excited. I'm going to get this wheel, put it on the ground, and then gotta jump to the other side, and then we'll take some beauty shots in the snow. Well, just in time for the snow to start coming down, but she's looking good. Got the snow tires on, got the rear flaps on, just how I did the front ones. The white and the red looks good, and I did clearance the corners on the front and the back, because obviously the front at full lock we're rubbing on the very edge, so it should be good. When I get the suspension done on this, it'll raise it up like a ½ inch to an inch, so it'll clear a lot better too. Other than that, she's looking good. Now there's gonna be more stuff that I want to do in the future, but for right now, for winter and for the snow, I think that will do it. Heck yeah. That's a whole ass look right there. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll try to do more videos of it here soon. like I said, I want to get the Motegi wheels and a couple of other things, and I want to do more in the barn with the other cars. So until then, see you guys later.